Hello. Welcome back to the White Mage's journey. We've had our ups, we've had our downs, big wins, and tragic losses. But through mastery of our craft, we've cheated death and allowed ourselves to see this journey through to the end. Join us, Refo, Dead Man, as we venture into the great unknown of the First, and bring some new friends along the way. This is REFFOID, Final Fantasy XIV, Shadowbringers. Oh shit. Welcome back, folks. Hope you don't mind I took a little break after literally dying. My year of White Mage practice has actually paid off. I was sick a minute ago, but I used Asuna, and it worked this time. I know my stuff now. And so we've entered into our senior year of REFFOID. I've been a bit busy since we last checked in with Refo Lasanius back in Stormblood. Feels like forever ago. As of this video, Shadowbringers is the first expansion of Final Fantasy XIV that goes beyond the legendary free trial. After nearly 200 hours of game, we are at the first actual premium content. But by now you should be familiar with how I structure these 14 reviews. Before we get into Shadowbringers, we gotta run through the Stormblood patches, starting with the first one. Patch 4.1, The Legend Returns. This one goes on a tangent almost instantly because I guess we've dealt with all the threats we knew about already, so we go on a treasure hunting trip with Arnvald. It gets more meaty as we dig into Fordola's backstory a bit more. Remember Fordola? She's the Alamegan who joined the Empire against us, and we never even really knew why until now. Her people saw her as a traitor and would curse and hurl stones at her family. She grew up alienated by everyone and so had no problem fighting against them. For now, we don't really know what to do with her, so we keep her in a cell as we try to figure out how to help the people of Alamigo with their newfound independence. Nanamo says her nation can help, but we need a lot of money and we got no choice but to meet up with Lolorito again. Everyone pushes Raban to join the people of Alamigo, but that would mean leaving Nanamo. He has an identity crisis about it, but ultimately decides he wants to stay at Nanamo's side. So Lise now takes responsibility for the new nation and tries to govern Alamigo with a circle of representatives instead of one king. So she's like, yeah, everyone agree with that? And then one of the snake ladies is like, I'll agree to anything, as long as all of you worship my god forever and devote your lives to my religion. Hey Refo, wanna come over here and kill their god again? Okay. And we do it with some unlikely help from Fordola. In the end, Raban makes preps to return to Ul'dah until Nanamo says, no, you don't actually want this. You're just worried about me. You gotta live your life now, man. I'll be fine. You go on without me. And he accepts the proposition with tears in his eyes. And so, the legend returns. The post-scene checks in with Gotsetsu and Yotsuyu we last saw stuck together on an abandoned island. Now they've made it back to Kugane with no money, and Yotsuyu is acting all playful and childish. She must have got hit on the head real hard or something. Patch 4.2, Rise of a New Sun. Hancock reports to us right away that those two are being seen around, so we race the Empire to get to them first, and he explains what happened. Apparently, when that building collapsed on them, they floated away on a stray door to that island, and he confirmed that Yotsuyu lost her memories and her masochistic nature and a few other brain cells during the collapse. She acts completely like an innocent little girl now, and he calls her Suyu. A new character, Asahi, Suyu's stepbrother and emissary for the Empire, arrives to discuss peace. He wants to work with them to destroy the icons and stop all the summoning. Naturally, Hien says, how can we trust you? He says, well, let's strike a deal. Let's trade our prisoners to each other. All the domans I took in the war, and you give me my sister back. We have a couple private talks, and he does what he can to ensure us that he really wants peace and to change the empire from the inside out. He asks if he can see his sister in private, please, so he goes ahead and comes back, and he's like, yeah, you're right, wow, she's a completely different person, I don't know what happened. She really has the mind of a child. So in starting peaceful negotiations and doing his best to make himself seem good, he makes his leave. But right beforehand, he pulls us aside to thank us personally, and he goes like, listen here, you little piece of shit. I worshipped Xenos, and I'll make sure you regret what you did. F*** you, I f***ing hate you. Okay, goodbye everybody. So, a flabbergasted Refo reports back to everyone else and goes like, hey guys, surprise, he's pure evil and this is all an act, like I told you. And they're like, all right, well now we gotta figure out how to deal with this guy. Meanwhile, in a post scene, Xenos is alive. Even though he slit his own throat in front of us, Xenos is alive. Patch 4.3, Under the Moonlight. So we know Asahi's evil, but now we gotta find out if Yotsuyu is like faking all this. After an extensive amount of spying that happened in between patches, Yugiri concludes that this is the real deal. Something is definitely wrong with her, but she's not faking. Heian decides, okay, this is good for us, let's give her a new life here and integrate her into Alamigan society. The problem is, if she sets foot in a village, everyone freaks out because, you know, this is the person who tortured and killed a bunch of them. When it's time to make the prisoners trade deal, Heian tries to exclude Tsuyu from it, but her brother says, wait a minute, I brought your parents, remember them? Clearly an attempt to shock her back to her old self, but it doesn't work. At first. Soon after, Tsuyu disappears, and while we all frantically look for her, we find her parents at some point dying on the floor. This triggers a flashback we get to see of them running into her and insulting her, threatening to sell her body. And that's what finally triggered her to return, and she just snaps and stabs them all right there. Exactly what her brother wanted to happen. This might be the worst family in Final Fantasy history. I don't know, Heian. If I was in charge, I would not have left those two alone together for a single moment. So it's all working out according to Asahi's plan. Yotsuyu returns to her evil mode, and we take the bait to meet them alone as she transforms into a primal. But actually they took the bait because we kill primals on the daily, time to die. As she lays there in her final moments, Asahi calls her a stupid whore and starts maniacally rambling as she uses the last of her power to slice two swords through his heart. I don't know whose side we're supposed to be on, if we're supposed to be happy for her or what, but I'm just glad both of these guys are dead and our hands are clean of them. Kotetsu isn't though, as he lost the friend he made in Tsuyu. Now he decides to leave on a soul-searching journey which unfortunately takes him out of the story for the time being. All that, and yet Xenos is still alive, so we go to dig up his grave and everything. He's gone. Thancred theorizes that an Ascian possessed the body since he's familiar with that type of thing. Meanwhile, Alphinaud went out on his own to fight bad guys for some reason, and there's a playable Alphinaud section. He's a summoner, and it brought back fond memories of Kroggar in another expansion. After the fight, he runs into someone who kills Ascians for sport. He wears masks as trophies for his kills. He's called the Shadow Hunter, and Alphinaud follows him out to the distance. It seems Stormblood is wrapped up, and we're now setting up the next expansion. Patch 4.4, Prelude in Violet. We send an Alphinaud rescue mission out to that wasteland that he went to, but we don't find him, and Alcé gets increasingly worried. But the big picture goal now is to rally Alamigo in alliance to restore Aether to this wasteland, which was giving me deja vu since that's like what we spent the whole proper expansion doing. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that happens with that. There's a playable Y'shtola section. During another several cutscenes will play moment, the leaders of the 6 nations all gather for a big meeting. The first time they've done it since that time everyone almost died. Item number 1 on today's meeting: how do we kill the Ascians? I don't know. Subterfuge? You get interrupted by a voice calling on you, but not just you. The other Scions hear it as well. Thancred even passes out from it. Guys, I think we gotta stop doing these meetings. It never works out. Connie Senna is like, I don't want to alarm you, but I'm not sensing Thancred's soul in his body anymore. And we hear from Uri and Jair too that he heard the voice So it's no coincidence the Scions are being targeted, and then he passes out. Then Y'shtola passes out. Now it's only Alice and I left. We split our resources best we can, and we're gonna try to seek the help of anyone who might know what the heck is going on. Then we get a bad guy meeting. Some new guy named Solus Zos Galvis shows up and says, "Hey guys, I'm back now," and starts barking orders, but I don't know who he is. Also, this scene basically confirms that Elidibus is in fact possessing the body of Xenos. So the Empire and the Ascians are working together, but they aren't getting along very well. Meanwhile, Alphanod's still traveling with the Shadowhunter, discovering that the Empire is using a chemical weapon called Black Rose to wipe out villages at a time. Patch 4.5, a Requiem for Heroes. We go to the one person we think can help us out, Matoya. She can't help. And it gets worse because the Empire learns that we're being taken out and begins to invade Alamigo to capitalize on the situation. Now we gotta stop them. Before their arrival, the Shadowhunter shows up, Alphanod in his arms, so looks like he's been passed out too since we last saw him. We notice one of the masks on his cloak belonged to Gaius, the OG final boss from the base game, and the Shadowhunter reveals he is Gaius von Balsar. He's left his place and is now committed to revenge on all Ascians for taking over at the end of A Realm Reborn. So he's just a badass hunter guy now. I'm very here for it. He gives us a bunch of new information, including how they're now cloning people like the Emperor we just saw at the end of the last patch. Oh, also, the Empire is going to use that die instantly gas on you, so bye. Before the war happens, we parley with the Empire. Like, hey man, what if you didn't kill us? And he's like, well, you wouldn't die if you didn't disobey us. All right. Just tell us why you're doing this. Well, it's to make Eorzea great again. We need to get rid of all the other races and become the same so all the world can be perfect again. Why don't you guys join me and do another calamity with the Ascians? The path to true peace is to cause a calamity. All right, well, I think we're gonna have to kill this guy, Steven. It's war once again, and we face Elidibus Xenos head on. But then we hear the voice calling to us again. It brings us to this platform of light, where an enigmatic figure tells us to stop what we're doing. You need to come with me to help my world, cause that's more important, trust me. You must go to the Crystal Tower. The Crystal Tower? We haven't been there in so long, why we gotta go there? Credits. And then in the post-credits, we see a nameless soldier going around killing things. It's implied to be the real Xenos. As in, yes, Xenos' body is being possessed by an Ascian, but Xenos' soul is currently possessing some random guy beginning a quest to get his own body back. That's what we're doing now, and that's where we end as we enter into Shadowbringers. These were some solid patches. It was a little bit different than Heavensward, which still had like the big bad, like running around still, even as we hit credits before the patches. Stormblood's story actually felt like it really ended when the credits hit in the base expansion, and the first 3 patches are sort of like a side story epilogue to that story. Seeing Gaius return as a rogue hunter guy on our side was a highlight. Seeing Gotsetsu go full dad mode and get way too attached to Yotsuyu was particularly sad, and even sadder when he left us after we killed her and stuff, and we haven't seen him since. I was kind of annoyed that Xenos came back like immediately, but then it wasn't actually Xenos, but then actual Xenos came back anyway. I was like, whatever man, I still don't like you. But you know what? We keep meeting new characters, the world keeps expanding, we keep discovering new areas. There's a lot more to chew on with every passing expansion. At this point in development, there have been a number of short stories posted on the official website to satisfy those interested in the extended lore of all these areas and other characters we keep meeting. Each one is usually focused on a particular character one at a time, and later these stories were compiled into a book called the Chronicles of Light, which also included a few extra exclusive short stories that are only in the book. One of them goes deep into Xenos' past. I wasn't really interested enough in picking the whole book up myself, but I was curious about the Xenos story because I give that guy so much crap, and I was just like, yeah, I'd be interested in reading that one about him. Luckily, somebody posted the entire story to Reddit, so I guess it's not really that exclusive. The gist of it is his mom died when he was born, and the whole rest of the story is pretty much him training with his tutor. His tutor is very strict and unrelenting. He learns all the techniques of the unyielding blade and eventually kills the tutor and vows on that day to find a worthy opponent to battle. It did not add that much to me. So he's always just been searching for a guy to kill who's better than him. That's really it. Like, oh, we're gonna extend his backstory. We're just gonna explain the same thing he already told us. Okay. That's when I was like, yeah, definitely don't need to buy that book. That's for like the hardcore 14 lore heads who are gonna go crazy for that. Not me. I'm good. Let's get into stuff I'm more interested in. The juicy stuff. The parts of the game that so far have been the highlight for me. The post-game raid content. Remember when we unleashed the Omega weapon to fight Shinryu during the Heavensward patches and it just got lost? Well, now we're gonna find it with the help of Cid, Nero, and Chocobo. A Chocobo specifically designed in the art style of the Final Fantasy Fables series, or really the Chocobo series proper. I never thought I'd bring up those games again. Our main ally in this raid series is a cartoon bird who comes with us to the computer dimension, where we're forced to participate in tests to determine how strong we are to become the alphas. These were by far, Shadowbringers included, the most difficult fights we've faced in the game. Attacks are complex, and they move so quickly, the gimmicks pile on other gimmicks. Everyone really needed to know what they were doing to keep up. And I still don't know which side Starboard is. But the fights were also just plain fun, and you get more of an interesting battle than the main story quest stuff. You get an X-Death fight, the Phantom Train, Kefka, literally chaos. But those last few fights in particular took so long. Here are some highlights.
How familiar are you guys with naval parts of ships? The starboard and the larboard?
Starboard and port, aft, and whatever, all that stuff.
Poop deck, yeah.
Not familiar at all, I just know they have names.
Yeah, no reason.
Julius is down.
Which way is starboard?
Right side.
Crap.
Healer LB3, please. Healer LB3 right now.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Whew. A little scared.
We needed that get out of jail free card.
I'm dead. Julius!
Tom, you can't be dead.
I don't know what happened.
Julius!
I don't think
crap,
he can.
There's no one else that he's over.
He doesn't have Swift Cast. No, we're back to the start.
No.
He can do it. He can do it.
Healer LB3. Oh, here we go.
No, Tom's alive. Tom, you can do it. Don't die. Holy crap.
Oh my god, don't get hit by the fist.
The fist. I gotta get up from my stupid kneeling position.
That was huge. Oh my god, the tanks
are dead. Yeah.
The tanks are dead. Somebody heal Seth.
We got it. We got it.
Dietrich is not.
I'm out of MP now, though.
I was gonna say,
It got a little stressful there.
if we got that like full heal and then just died afterwards anyway. Oh, Seth, no. Oh my god.
Dead.
That's another one.
Oh. Just end him now.
Before he
Just
starts
end
getting
him now.
Before he starts getting all this
No
shit
more larboard and
back.
starboard. Just end him now.
Oh, thank God.
Alright, so those were like the two hardest things we've ever done in our entire lives, apparently.
We're alphas now.
I don't know, I just kind of feel dead inside.
The final boss looks like Amano art given life. It was all so cool, and it really set the bar for post-game stuff going forward. The story in between the fights was pretty nice, getting this chocobo to believe in himself that he can be the alpha, even though he's just a little bird guy, was pretty cool. Next up is another beloved raid series, Stormblood's Alliance raids, called Return to Ivalice. Basically, it's one huge love letter to Final Fantasy Tactics. You meet a little girl named Alma who leads you to her airship. Her dad, Genomus, was forced to flee his theater company from the Empire after refusing to stop criticizing the government. He believed the story of the Zodiac Braves was real and set off to Rabanastre to prove it, but he got lost, and with the help of his son Ramza, like actual Ramza, you go after him. It's 3 more extensive, massive 24-man dungeons. Still pretty tough in comparison to the previous ones, letting you revisit tactics and Final Fantasy XII inspired areas through fresh eyes. I love how much more detailed the raid content is getting, and good lord, there is so much dialogue in the story. I guess that's the Tactics way. I've heard of hardcore Tactics fans picking up 14 just to get up to and play this, and they said it was worth it. That's a little crazy to me. But then again, Tactics fans have absolutely nothing to eat these days. Now, if you watch my trilogy of Tactics reviews, you know I'm definitely not a hardcore Tactics fan. I actually had a lot of problems with all 3 games, and I don't have the fondest memories of them. I clapped at the thing I recognized, but the 10-minute cutscenes of straight dialogue sitting in that airship room, I was falling asleep. I'm sorry. But according to the target audience of this crossover, they knocked it out of the park. The first dungeon was my favorite because it was all Final Fantasy XII stuff. It was like running and playing in a Final Fantasy XII theme park. I imagine that's what the rest of the event feels like for Tactics fans. They clearly gave it a lot of attention to detail, and it made me no longer desire for any original raid content. I'm just like, give me the fan service stuff from now on, please. I want every main line to have its own Alliance raid. Unfortunately, this was, for the most part, a one-time special event. There's more 12 stuff later on when you get a surprise cameo from Fran. That was cool. Of course, I have to point out that once again, they chose a more interesting party member from the game and not Vaughn. But in reality, they chose her because at the time, it was a big reveal, teasing that the next playable race would be the Viera. So everyone acts all surprised like it's their first time seeing a bunny person, like, a Viera? But they're not allowed out here, no one has ever seen them. And I'm just sitting here like, what? Gabranth makes a cameo by the end too, so yeah, it's pretty much the most fan servicey thing we've seen. If I was a huge Tactics fan, I would love it. And I hope we get more like it. But speaking of crossovers, I want to talk about an actual crossover with another company. Stormblood also comes with a small Monster Hunter questline in which you can fight Rathalos in a trial. I've never played a Monster Hunter game, but I love the idea of translating another game's combat style into the 14 trial style. They brought over classic Monster Hunter mechanics like attacking the tail for stuff and giving you potions to use. I guess they don't have healers in those games. You might be asking, does the addition of usable potions on every player completely negate the necessity of a dedicated healer player such as myself? Yes, it does. As long as everyone used their potions when they could, I was next to worthless in this fight. But you know, it's Rathalos, it's cool. We are now finished with the Stormblood patches, but I want to touch on a limited time event I played during this time, the Maiden's Rhapsody, a Final Fantasy XI collab. I have a complicated relationship with Final Fantasy XI, initially dunking on it in its modern day state in the longest episode of REFFOID ever. Part of me looks back at it now with strange, nostalgic rose-tinted glasses for an era of video games long gone by. I only got emotionally attached to one character on that journey, and it was Iroha, the girl from the future who trained with the legendary red mage Lasanius. This collab event stars her as she mysteriously wakes up in Eorzea and has to regain her memories to return home to Vana'diel. It's only about an hour of gameplay where you run around with her and fight monsters to the ancient tune of 11's original battle theme. It was fun, and it was my first time actually having to wait in an online self-made queue to fight things. That was kind of funny. In the end, Iroha tells you remind her of her master, probably because we have the same last name, and you get her armor to glam over your character. Another first for me. Can I just say, figuring out glamour the first time, and how everything works, and the glamour plates, and the glamour dresser, and the armory dresser, that was excruciating. There has to be a simpler way to do that. It's like not that complicated, but also stupidly complicated at the same time. Figuring out your first go is just like, it took so long. I was so annoyed. Anyway, even this late in, we're discovering new MMO joys for the first time. Along with these raids, collabs, glams, another new development has occurred in Reffo's MMO journey. If you've been following since about a year ago when we began A Realm Reborn, you saw the team, which started pretty big and it slowly shrank into pretty much 2 people. After we finished the Stormblood story, I decided to open the doors to the REFFOID community, and every Monday night I would stream our Final Fantasy XIV Mondays. This is Friends Update. We had no expectations going in, but on pretty much every multiplayer duty, we were graced with the help from viewers at home who were happy to join us and teach us tricks along the way. Whether it was powering through the Omega fight or sweeping through a basic story dungeon, it was so awesome to play and hang out with the people. I gotta shout out Clink, Temmie, Wind, and especially Seth, aka Alurith Manderville, who I think was there like every week. And sometimes he'd even call in his own crew, the Gentlemen, to fill out the party slots even more when we needed it.
Where do we actually go from here?
The entrance was right there. It was in that place.
Oh, it wouldn't let me...
Oh.
It wouldn't let me teleport for some reason. Like, I was trying to click on it, I was like, alright, never mind. What?
This is the boys.
Guess they were a little bit lazy.
Oh, it's even Temmie. Wow, the gang's all here. Whoa, I thought you got early access to the painter class for a second. Oh, Julius. I remember you. Lady Kachi, I remember you. Dude, this is awesome. This rules. We're getting the whole squad to beat Shadowbringers. We got the full party. Who's meowing?
The cat.
Let's stop a dying gas. What do you say? That joy. Seth was pretty much the REFFOID tank all the way through, but all of them had other classes they could switch to because we're talking about dedicated Final Fantasy XIV players who are more than willing to help out us noobs through a fight they've fought a bunch of times already. This is the power of the 14 community we hear so much about. We stream for about 3 hours, 8 p.m. Eastern on Monday nights, and when it's not a raid night, we usually do like one story dungeon and then just continue through the story, just reacting to it, chatting with people in the chat. It's a very chill vibe. Viewership has not often gone beyond single digits, but it's just me and Deadman hanging out, chatting with people, talking about whatever, and honestly, it's like a highlight of my week. Big pulls. Do it, big pull.
Oh no.
Oh no, Seth died immediately.
Oh, Tom, what have you done?
It's Super Mario, yeah! Click says it was me, I gambled the whole raid.
Oh my god! Your confidence is unmatched.
Turns out live streaming is fun. There was one night where we didn't realize maintenance was happening, so we got kicked out of 14 and then spent the rest of the night playing Guess the Game and Jackbox. It was a fun time. Eventually we'll run out of 14 stuff to stream at the end of this trail, but I'm curious if anybody has other game ideas they want to see streamed. Doesn't have to be Final Fantasy, it could be anything. I'm down for anything. But more importantly, thank you to anyone in the REFFOID community who has helped out or even just hung out in the chat on Mondays. It makes that MMO grind so much more fun. So let's grind forward. Shadowbringers takes our heroes and isekais them into a brand new dark world that has some slight similarities to our own and also a lot of differences. As teased earlier, it adds the Viera as a playable race, but only female. Male Vieras like Refo were only allowed since Endwalker. Deadman's own Hrothgar was added as well, male only, with the female version coming soon in Dawntrail. They added Dancer as a new DPS job and Gunbreaker as a new tank job so you can roleplay Squall better now. The big new quality of life feature this time around is the trust system, which I've already talked about as it was slowly implemented into past content after release. This is the thing that allows players to enter a dungeon with NPCs if they really want to go for that single player experience. It's a great feature and will go a long way to future-proofing the game, but Stormblood gave every job a unique gauge with its own mechanics, and Heavensward gave us flying, so in my opinion, this is actually the least exciting update in terms of mechanics. And speaking of less exciting, Shadowbringers adds role quests to the game for the first time as a replacement for job quests. See, one of the fun parts about picking a job was knowing it came with its own unique storyline. Every job in the game got a set of job quests to do in each expansion that would build on whatever happened last time. I would talk about these in my usual White Mage update. Now, whether or not that story was particularly exciting is besides the point. It was more about the feeling of being especially catered to you and your job. It would award you new abilities and actually build fights around those abilities to teach them to you. That was cool. Shadowbringers gets rid of this feature for a simplified, streamlined, easier to implement version. Role quests are like the same idea, but now they're made exclusively for roles instead of jobs. Instead of needing to be a white mage, you just need to be any healer, any tank, any physical DPS, or any magical DPS. That's 4 unique quest lines, as opposed to like 20. They probably wanted to lighten the load that came with each expansion, especially when they would add even more jobs with each expansion, but I don't know, man. As a player, this is kind of disappointing. I guess we'll never get to see those characters from my story again. I wouldn't mind so much if role quests were more like juiced up and intricate, but they were about exactly as substantial as my previous job quests. I just feel like I'm getting less now, you know? Coulda gave us like a dungeon or something at the end of the quest line, have all the jobs come together. Finishing the quest line is required to beat the story, so everyone would have done it. It's not like it would have been wasted content. But anyway, let's talk about how mine went. It's time for another installment of White Mage Update. The healer role quests are run by Giat, a drunken dwarf on a mission to stop a powerful sin eater named Sophrosine. What's a sin eater? Oh, don't worry about it yet. It's a type of monster we're trying to get rid of. She herself is a healer and keeps bringing back all the sin eaters we kill, so Giat employs us to figure out how to deal with her, how to get inside a healer's mind. The twist is that Sophrosine is the sin eater version of Lamit, one of the Warriors of Darkness from back in the Heavensward patches. We defeat her by putting Giat's helmet on her and reminding her of her past or something like that. Taking off your helmet is forbidden, so in the end, Giat leaves the dwarves. Role quests do allow for the respective stories to lean more relevant to the main plot, so that's a nice positive. Abilities now are just earned through leveling, which means we kinda learned them all before we even got to Shadowbringers, but due to level syncing, we couldn't really use them until now. This time I think we have a good set of new skills. It's about time. Both of my damaging attacks got rehauled, so the era of spamming stone at enemies is over. Now we spam glare, which is stronger and much more white mage magic-y. Arrow, my damage over time, has been replaced with Dia, another upgrade in the same vein. I really appreciated the extra damage because, yeah, sure, if I'm doing my job in the big fights, I should be mostly healing. But for everything else outside of dungeons and trials, I'm fighting stuff by myself. So this is a big help for those moments, especially the single player duties, which can be pretty rough for a healer. One of my favorite actions, the bubble I can cast in a big circle, also got a little boost in healing power, great. But there was one ability in particular I was looking forward to in Shadowbringers. The next Lily ability you'll unlock is at level 74. 74? That's the expansion after the next expansion. Even in the next video, I won't be talking about Lily abilities. Yes, my main gimmick, my job gauge, the Lily's job gauge, has done the same thing since I unlocked it for 200 hours. Over time, I have 3 Lilies bloom, and I could spend a Lily to heal at no MP cost. That's all it did. That's nice, but that's all it did. Up until the halfway point of the 3rd expansion. So first up, we learned an additional Lily ability. Same idea as the first one, but it's an AoE. Okay, cool, nice to have. But now, we also have a new Lily growing on the side. This is the Blood Lily. Instead of growing over time like the others, it grows a little each time you use a Healing Lily ability. After 4 uses, it's done and allows you to do big damage to an enemy and any surrounding enemies. White Mage? Doing big damage? Don't mind if I do. If you work as efficiently as you can, this allows White Mage to be a semi-decent damage dealer support. I mean, obviously it's no DPS class, but it can be a little helpful. My problem is I do not spend lilies efficiently. I hold on to those lilies because I've treated them as a plan B or plan C move when I don't have magic. Unbeknownst to my team, those backup lilies came in clutch on more than one occasion. But now I have to adjust my playstyle to succumb to the temptations of the Blood Lily. One healing lily takes 20 seconds to bloom, so at a minimum, I can have a Blood Lily big damage attack every 80 seconds. Combined with my damage over time from Dia, in a long boss battle, this would cut down the health bar significantly. I think the sacrifice of keeping 2 lilies in the emergency stock instead of 3 is worth it for that. My new expansion resolution is to become an efficient Blood Lily machine. I may know re-raise, but there's still a long way to go before I'm a true White Mage master. I didn't even mention my capstone ability, Temperance, which increases my healing potency and reduces damage slightly to everyone around me. But more importantly, it gives me these really cool wings of light on my character. Temperance combined with Indulgences, combined with Bubble, makes my heals over 50% more effective. I could be heal comboing if I was actually any good at this game. This was the best White Mage update so far, and it's been a long time coming. I now have so many abilities to work with that I had to opt into the 3rd hotbar, even though I try so hard to keep my UI as minimalist as possible. Sometimes I go 5 minutes without realizing, oh my god, I haven't been using this ability. That would have been nice for the past 5 minutes to be using this. It would be healing people or it would be reducing damage or something. I just forget that I have them. I gotta click on so many things. The lesson I learned through dealing this over Shadowbringers was that I need to be less conservative with my moves. Like I said, there's still much to learn. I'm definitely enjoying the gameplay more and more the deeper we get, but the story's a different story. So far, the Final Fantasy XIV story has not been that consistent uphill slope of quality that I was expecting. Stormblood ended up being pretty mixed among fans, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. But Shadowbringers was the one everybody is like, no, this one's the one. So, last thing on the checklist, it's story time. You begin with a search for the voice that called to you at the end of the last patch. Find the voice, open the gate, save your friends. The voice brings us on another vision through space as we witness memories of all the characters we've met on our journey, and then a dark, shadowy figure. Hearing another voice, the one belonging to the Warrior of Darkness, we wake up somewhere else entirely, a place where the sun does not set, a place where light has overtaken darkness. We meet the Crystal Man who is calling to us here. He goes by the Crystal Exarch, and this place is called the First. The Exarch plucked us from our world so we could save this one. When exploring the Crystallized City, you learn about the flood of light sent by the Oracle of Light who spared this region from being consumed, but still plunged the world in lightness. The souls of the Scions who passed out in our world were sent here and have been here for years already. See, the flow of time drastically shifts over time. Sometimes 1 year could be an hour in your world, sometimes they're equivalent. Basically, everyone's gonna be here for as long as the writers decide they will. According to the Exarch, Urianger had witnessed the future when he was traveling through that space thing that we did. He saw the two worlds colliding together, causing another calamity and the death of the Warrior of Light. So instead of finding their way home, the Scions all decided to stay and figure out some way to stop it all. Then to top it off, the Warrior of Darkness appears before you. Real name Ardbert. Been a long time coming. In case you forgot about it, there was a whole arc involving this guy in the Heavensward patches. To me, it was the most interesting part of the whole story up to that point. I wanted to learn more about him and where he came from and the moral gray area of what we were doing in our world. That's part of why Stormblood disappointed me. They set up all this cool stuff and then ignored it to do a War with the Empire plot. But now here we are. We're in his world. We're gonna find out all about it. I was so excited when I saw him show up. He's also our narrator this time around. But the first thing on your to-do list is to find your friends. Another point for me, because Heavensward ignored the part where your friends were gone for so long. This is where you get your standard beginning of expansion split. The two separate main quests to find Alphinaud and Alice. I realize now they probably do this to split the player base in half as they flood in on day 1 of the expansion drop. Alphanaud is dwelling in a low-class gate town filled with people living off scraps and being used for entertainment. It's one of those rich people paradises towering above the slums of the poor. We weasel our way in by pretending to be an assistant to Alphanaud's artistry, But unfortunately we smell bad, so we take a shower. That's literally a quest, take a shower. The ruler of this place is a giant beast of a man who holds command over the Sin Eaters. Alright, so the Sin Eaters, they were once living beings warped by the influx of primordial light. Creepy, angelic monsters that make people live in fear, and the main thing we gotta kill on this quest. Alice is working to help people who are turning into Sin Eaters, even putting them out of their misery when needed, making the awful choice of putting someone down knowing the other option is them becoming a monster that eats people on instinct. We make friends with another lady helping the cause, only to witness her turn into a monster in gruesome detail. Once we get Alice and Alphanaud together, we establish our next goal of killing the Light Wardens. Basically big Sin Eater bosses, because killing them brings back the Shadow to the mainland. We're bringing the Shadow. And we also learn about a new Minfilia. Minfilia is a name given to a girl born every generation to become the next Oracle of Light, and it's up to us to rescue the current one. Because of Thancred's involvement with our old Minfilia, he helps us on our rescue mission. Turns out Thancred has been in charge of her for many years now, originally looking for our old Minfilia, last seen during the time with the Words of Darkness. She at some point was possessing this girl to help her fulfill her destiny, but ultimately chose to let her have her own life. Now Thancred is stuck babysitting new Minfilia and can't help but feel some resentment towards her. Now we gotta find Urianger. He's been away at the Pixie Kingdom after seeing the vision of the 8th calamity where everyone dies, including you. The Pixie Kingdom of course brings trickery and tomfoolery along with it, but once you get through it all, you find Urianger. Together you figure out how to beat the Pixie Light Warden. I've yet to mention Feo, a pixie that was assigned to you when you arrived in this world. She's got a wicked Scottish accent and is very protective of you. She was fun, and she becomes the queen of the fairies in place of the Light Warden when we defeat it. Between these big missions, you periodically check in with the ghost of Ardbert, only seen by you as a warrior of light / darkness thing. In this world, you actually adopt the warrior of darkness name fully. You also get check-ins with Emmet Selk, the big bad of the story. He was that young emperor who showed up in the big bad guy meetings during those last few patches. Turns out he was the first emperor of the Garlean Empire, but his main identity is as an Ascian attempting to cause the next umbral calamity and bring about the rejoining. He's also a snarky son of a gun. But ignore him, we still have to find Y'shtola. She's running the Lahi Woods in the name of Matoya. Remember, she's blind, but senses aether. That's pretty much how she can see, so she can recognize the Scions except for Refo, who has been bursting with so much aether that she thought we were a monster. This is because whenever you kill a Light Warden, you absorb its aether, and this is leading us down a dangerous road if we don't find a way to fix that. Later, you overhear a fight between Y'shtola and Urianger like they're concerned parents arguing for what's best for their kid. After a quest in the ancient temple, Y'shtola dies again by falling into a pit, but Emmet Selk pulls her body out of the life stream just like we did last time, but much easier. He's like, maybe you guys will trust me that I'm doing what's best for the world if I do this for you. No, we won't. The ruins in this temple give tale of the origins of Zodiark and Hydaelyn, the two gods we've been wondering about since like the beginning of the game. Hydaelyn broke Zodiark into 13 shards and one source. Our world is the source. This world is called the First because it's the first shard. Only Emmet and the rest of the Ascians remember what it was like before all this. It was better. It should go back that way. His friends were all there. Every Ascian had friends and family there before they all got split into fractions. So that's his plan. Let's destroy everything and rejoin the world to put everything back the way it was. Now, Minfilia, have you made your decision on following through with your destiny? Maybe old Minfilia can help you come to a choice. In a lovely reunion scene, the two Minfilias talk it out and she makes the decision. We wake up and now she has orange hair. Thancred at this point has bonded enough with the new Minfilia and he's accepted the fate of our old friend. Since new Minfilia is her own person now, Thancred kind of takes ownership over her and he dubs her a new name, Reen. And she helps us kill more gods with her new light powers, including that huge fat guy who turns into a shredded guy in the middle of the fight. This is when the Crystal Exarch reveals his master plan to use Refo to absorb all the light and use that light to escape from this terrible world because turns out he's the cat boy from the Crystal Tower Alliance raids all the way back in the Realm Reborn patches. Well, I certainly didn't expect that. Now we know why they made it a requirement to play the first raid. We thought it was just, forcing people to play, showing off a cool new mode, but the requirement was actually only implemented when this expansion came out to ensure that this cat boy was canon in everybody's playthrough. His name is Grahatia, and I don't even know if I mentioned him in that video. But Emet-Selch comes in and teleports him away for one final offer to us. Meet me in the lost city of Atlantis and join me in the rejoining of worlds. This part I was iffy on. It was the only time the story felt like it was really coming to a halt. We gotta explore this dark, sad undersea area and then the giant city, which looks cool and has these big funny cloaked guys, but since everything is like double-sized, it takes noticeably longer to get anywhere, twice as longer. You feel so much slower. We were building up to this finale and then it's just like hours of walking before anything meaningful happens. But finally we make it to Emet-Selch. Don't know why you couldn't have just teleported us here or something. And he's like, alright, so you're gonna join me? And we're like, no man, we're not gonna kill everyone. Alright, well actually I'm Hades and I'm a god, so I'm gonna kill you. Oh, but dude, we kill gods, I'm sorry. And as an apology, Grahatia returns and summons more warriors from beyond the rift to help us in this battle. And I think what they're trying to do is canonize the fact that you play every trial with 8 other random warriors of light, which I think is pretty fun. I like that. We kill Emmet, and his final words are, "Remember us. Remember that we once lived." Grahatia is like, yeah, sorry again guys, see I was planning on sending you back once I died from Reffo's Light, but the awkward thing now is that I didn't die and now there's no way to send you guys all back. And they're like, alright, well okay, I guess we'll figure something out. The end. I held off on a couple meanwhiles that were sprinkled throughout the story. Basically, while all that business is going on in the first, back on our world, Estinian and Gaius have been working on invading the Empire after we discovered the body snatching thing that they were up to. Estinian and Gaius, that's a cool team up. And when Xenos confronts Elidibus in his body, Elidibus runs away to the moon like he does at the end of every expansion, leaving Xenos to gain control of his own body again. Looking forward to having another duel with Refo Lizanius. This expansion, both in terms of gameplay and story, feels like we're finally getting what we've been looking for. Not just the backstory and overall plan of the so-called main villains who haven't been that much more than a distraction up till now, but also the continuation of the plot that they established in Heavensward and just completely ignored after that. I mean, I'm glad it's happening, but I can't help but feel a little annoyed that it took this long. Not to keep piling on Stormblood, but the way Shadowbringers consistently delivers what we want to see, it just makes Stormblood look so much worse than it was. It makes the whole expansion look like an even bigger distraction from what we now know is the true picture. Now, between dungeons and trials, the gameplay is still the same. You are still slowly trekking across these areas to click on text boxes. That is not going to change. And if you're this far in, you've made peace with that. Like, it's not worth dwelling on anymore. If that's a problem for you, you've been out. There are a few extra mini-game-like quests where you gotta scope something out or get past guards stealthily. Single-player duties have added more fun to them as time goes on, and I like that. What surprised me was how reined in the story felt this time around. The last 2 expansion stories, for one reason or another, had big pacing issues or had too many quests that felt like deliberate distractions for wasting your time. Like, that kind of stuff really annoys me. And this one was pretty solid. Making these story summary segments for these videos has always been surprisingly easy. I go in thinking, oh boy, I gotta sum up 26 hours of gameplay. But then I look at my notes and I'm like, oh, well, that can be cut, that can be cut. That never amounted to anything. Oh, that was pointless. Cut that, cut that. And then the actual summary is like, oh, it's pretty basic. What the actual story is when you cut the fat isn't that complex. But making it this time, I had to cut out some stuff that I felt was important, but I just didn't want to waste so much time on just the story summary part of a review. There are whole characters I didn't mention that I liked. They weren't like super important, but They left an impression, unlike so many others. And once we figured one thing out, the story moved on into something else, you know? It kept moving, it kept developing. Aside from that underwater area in the end that I mentioned, and maybe some parts of the Pixie world, I never felt like we were just stewing in filler for too long. My favorite part was that every Scion member, aka the main crew, actually joins you on this adventure, and they all have their own little side adventures with you. This is surprisingly the first expansion where we all actually work as a team through the whole way, and we don't have people going off like, well, no, I'm busy, I gotta do this other thing, or I'm presumed dead. Thancred has this difficult moral dilemma dealing with this kid who's supposed to be a replacement for the girl he was trying to get back. Urianger has come so far since being a masked weirdo in the corner whispering to bad guys. I think he's my favorite of the Scions. And Y'shtola has to deal with this found family she joins in the woods, knowing that someday she will have to go back to her world and leave them. This, plus the killer raid content from the Stormblood patches, plus we finally got a great White Mage update, plus our own little edition of live streaming on Monday nights. This has really come together for me. This expansion hit. Final Fantasy XIV has weaseled its way into my life and has become something I do look forward to. Not that I was like dreading it before, but now I'm like, ooh, I can't wait for Monday night. I can't wait to see what happens next in the story and hang out with the REFFOID crew. I can't wait to, usually Wednesdays or Thursdays, I get on myself and just play the story, get up to the next dungeon myself. I look forward to that. I look forward to doing some extra stuff that we'll talk about in the next video. Because by the time this video comes out, we'll probably be wrapping up the Shadowbringers raids and patches, which means we'll be heading towards what's known as the final part of the giant storyline that began in A Realm Reborn, Endwalker. It's crazy to think we even made it this far. Well, I guess technically I did die, so it's not that crazy. In the meantime, there are only so many games left in the Final Fantasy franchise. I'm on my own Endwalk. As a friend of mine said when he unfortunately commented on my review of Final Fantasy X-2 in the summer of 2022, we're in the end game now. See you next time on REFFOID for some more garbage. Bye.